Well, good morning and welcome back to the program. Please join me in welcoming my very good friend, our managing editor for Korea Broadcasting Network News and the host of St. Martin Insights News that matters to you, our good friend Emil Lee. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Sock. Good morning, listeners. Good to be here again.
Well, I got to tell you, I you raised some hell yesterday
Yes.
at the Council of Ministers press briefing. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um, and it seems to me that the big elephant in the room remains GEBE,
For sure. For sure.
and they just can't seem to get their act together. I don't get it.
Well, maybe just for our listeners, yesterday was the Prime Minister, Minister of Justice, and Minister of Tiat there. And they had rather lengthy presentations, so there wasn't really a lot of time for questions.
Who else
But
was there from press, from the media?
just BB from SMN News.
Yep.
Um, And so they went over a couple of things, and I think we should actually go into them as well. But indeed, the elephant in the room is about GB, and
And for those of the people that maybe we have some listeners that know, GEBE or GB is our public utility. It
exactly
is a monopoly owned, and the shareholder is the government. They
right.
owned it's a public monopoly owned by the government of St. Martin that produces electricity and produces and distributes electricity and distributes water
For the island,
for the
correct.
island on the Dutch side.
And they have the monopoly, like you said. They're the only ones you're obligated to work with them. So you don't have a choice as a
Right.
consumer
Right.
or a business. That's
The only
the only game in town.
the only other choice you have is to go off grid.
Right. And again, for listeners, and so for context, I think it was what 2022.
It's coming up 3 years now.
So it's coming on 3 years.
March.
The utility company had a hack
A
of
cyber
their
attack.
a
Yeah.
cyber attack. So their billing system was affected. I don't know what else was affected. And by the way, interesting, a fact that I don't really hear people mentioning, but the prosecutor's office wanted to go into GB to examine the computers, their network, to understand because it's a criminal act, right?
Mhm.
If you um, launch a cyber attack and damage information or take the information and hold it hostage, that's a criminal act. So the
Mhm.
prosecutor's office wanted to go in to examine the computer network, and they were denied access. Right, so that in itself should raise some questions for
So
people.
why is the prosecutor's office now taking them to leveraging
Don't know the legalities of it, but I mean, 3 years later, I'm pretty sure that any evidence there was of
has been
who
destroyed?
was negligent or if someone was complicit, I'm pretty sure by now that evidence is all gone. So
Mm.
but that's crazy, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like I don't know what they find a dead body on your lawn and they want to come into your house and you say no, sorry, you can't come in to search. I don't know.
No,
That
you go get a
seems very
search. You
unusual.
go to the judge. You get a search warrant, and you come in.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know why they didn't do that. I'm not a legal expert, but so in the end, nothing in terms of a legal consequence came out of that cyber attack. But the effects are still long going. And I have a business where we manage a number of GB accounts, and I made a spreadsheet just to see how many invoices are still missing, and we are missing a substantial amount of invoices,
How many meters do you have?
like 55 meters,
Okay.
and I don't know the percentage, but a lot of them are missing. We finally made an Excel sheet just to send to GB because we're in ongoing conversations with them, asking them for invoices.
Right.
And actually, we're one of the few that, in those periods where no invoices were issued, we looked at previous year consumption and kind of estimated and made payments without an invoice.
We did the same.
Right? So, I mean, I think that was like the most responsible thing you could have done. And you're going to give us a hard time?
Yeah.
It's beyond me. It's
But
beyond me.
it is, at the end of the day, what I really struggle with is their inability to do basic things like bookkeeping.
Right.
Yeah, it just and your spreadsheet is a classic example of.
And you know what's not, at this point, GB knows they effed up, right? So take the last meter reading before the hack, take the next meter reading, let's say whatever, 2 years later, and say, look, your total consumption over these 2 years was X number of kilowatts.
Mm-hmm.
We screwed up. So we're going to take an average fuel clause over the 2 years and say, over this 2 year period, you should have paid X amount of dollars.
You paid Y.
You paid Y, and the difference is, let's talk about how we settle. Either we owe you money or you owe us money.
Right.
Make it simple. Stop fooling around with this. But since I asked the question, oh my God, the amount of WhatsApp messages and comments on Facebook with people who have similar issues
Mm-hmm.
is just astounding. So indeed, I asked at the press conference, but really more from, because it was also to the Prime Minister and the Minister of TIAT, because the Minister of TIAT is the Minister of Economic Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
They have inspectors, for example, that go out to supermarkets to inspect food prices
and
make
scales
sure,
and weights and all
and
that
expiration dates and stuff like that, because under TIAT there is supposed to be a consumer protection facet to the ministry. And so my point was, here you are dealing as a business or an individual with a monopoly,
Mm-hmm.
and where is the consumer protection? Because if I, as a business, failed to give you an invoice for services rendered 3 years later, right, at some point there would be a limit that says, you know what, your time to bill has sort of expired, right? It's just not reasonable anymore.
It would be like me trying to send somebody a bill for radio advertising from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it would, just to make
You'd get
sense.
laughed out the door. I
Right.
mean, but usually by the time your book's closed for the year, you're already kind of stuck, right?
So I'll tell you that I have another example of things screwed up, and I will say kudos to GB. At least now they are showing, when you get your invoice, if you have a previous outstanding balance, they print that on the invoice, which they never used to do. That's new.
Oh,
and
okay.
And it's
this is the invoice they email to you,
yeah,
or you have to go there to get it.
No, your regular invoice.
Okay, your regular invoice.
So you get there's your previous outstanding. There's your total amount on this invoice. There's your previous outstanding, and then there's the total due.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and the whole previous outstanding balance, it was never there before.
Okay.
That's new. And
as of when?
About 2-3 months ago, something like that. I can go back and
okay.
pull,
Good
pull,
to know.
Yeah, I'll go pull the file.
No. But I mean, I'll look at my GB bills myself. Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, my last this is the most current invoice for the radio station, and my electric and my water consumption for this floor, which was $594.89. They say that I have a previous outstanding balance of $157.74 in dollars.
Mm-hmm.
My total new outstanding is $752.63. Now, interestingly enough, meanwhile, I just paid them the $594.89,
Mm-hmm.
so that's paid. But if I go back to, let's see, this goes back to nope, let me get back. I'm flipping back through. This goes back to October. I have a bill. This goes back to the bill from January 18th of this year to February 14th of this year. And they sent me a bill which was paid, and they told me in writing, they sent me a copy of it saying that I have a credit balance of 280.76 guilders, or 157.73. So they told me I have a credit on my account, yet they're still showing that I have a previous balance of 153 of the same amount as the credit.
Mm-hmm.
It's called, guys, get your acts together. And I sent this off to them on October 31st when I saw the first month that I saw the previous balance. This is not possible because everything was at zero, and you told me I had a credit in that amount on my account. So do your homework, people. Just sloppy bookkeeping,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sloppy bookkeeping,
And
and nobody's responded to me.
well, and so really, that's the basis of the question to both Prime Minister and to Tiat is here you are as a consumer dealing with a monopoly that you have no choice but to deal with. That monopoly business is incompetent, right?
Yeah,
And yet, as a consumer, you have no rights. I can't take them to court to make them give me an invoice, apparently. So what do you? And then they erroneously act on the assumption that you owe money when they can't produce invoices. So there's no way for you to prove that the account is up or down. You yourself don't know if you can't produce all the invoices, right?
right.
And there's zero consumer protection. And that's really
It's
the
wrong.
the the basis of the question, and I didn't love the answer. So first of all, the Prime Minister said GB claims they're at 97% accuracy now with their invoicing. And based on the my personal experience and
This.
the anecdotal evidence of people reaching out and the frustration level, I don't believe that's true at all.
No.
And again, government seems to have no authority. The Prime Minister said, this is why I've asked for the resignation of the board. And then the Ministry of Tiat. So, as you know, they're planning to put authorities in BTP, Bureau of Telecommunications.
The Bureau of Telecommunications and Post, which is our
Right.
regulator here at the radio station.
Right. So Curacao has a similar structure. So they're going to use that entity to regulate tariffs. And so that's going to be their way to sort of manage the rates that GB is allowed to charge. And then Minister of Tiat said they're also putting in then that consumer protection legal structure.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is kind of scary. It means that government actually has no basis to protect consumers who are the residents and business people and voters of St. Martin. So, and they're talking about, I don't know, probably the way legislation goes sometime next year if you're lucky. So in the meantime, it really makes you wonder about how things are working here. And it also made me think about the tax department has this habit of sending out there's a 5-year period that after 5 years the tax department cannot come back and audit or demand payment for back taxes if it's older than 5 years, right? They're called time barred. There's like a statute of limitations on that. So the tax department has this habit of just sending out assessments for at the end of the year. So it's kind of like you, Sock. Imagine if you just sent a business say, look, I'm going to send you a $50,000 invoice. If you don't agree with it, you need to prove to me that it's not correct. Again, that's harassment. So from a consumer protection perspective, you don't know if I owe you money. We're talking about the tax department, right? You don't know if I owe you money, but you're just going to send an assessment and say, now you need to prove that the assessment's incorrect. So I need to now spend time going through my books, hiring an accountant, writing you objection letters, and all of that stuff.
It's just wrong.
It's harassment, and it's something that I think consumers need to be protected from.
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. Now I'm gonna share with you. So since we're talking GB, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing, as everyone knows, I've been experimenting with solar,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm about a year into my full solar system. There's about 50 panels on the roof, 48, I think. I'm about to add 2 more, and I've had I had a number of panels prior to adding batteries and all that, and going to a fully battery operated system. But let's take a quick look. Every day, rather, I go out on my way to work. I take a picture of my GB meter, and I take 2 pictures. One of my import number. So what is the number on the meter that shows how many kilowatt hours I have brought in? And then it also shows an export reading. How many kilowatt hours do I send out? And the difference from day to day tells me my consumption, and it tells me how much I've sent back every day. So with the solar system that I have, with the panels and the three batteries, during the month of December, the current billing cycle from the 13th of November through this morning, I have taken 44.51 kilowatt hours from GEBE. I typically use 2,300 kilowatt hours a month, right? Is what I typically consume at the house because we live with air conditioning. That 44.51 kilowatt hours equates to, at their current billing rate of 0.331 cents US per kilowatt hour, $14.35. And if I look at everything that I've exported back 75.24 kilowatt hours. If they paid me at the same rate, they would actually owe me money this
Mm-hmm.
month.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and people
Which
don't.
is by the way not typically how it works when you have a net metering system. They wouldn't
Correct.
pay you back one for
No,
one.
but you would
But
you would
just for comparison,
what
yes.
they wouldn't actually get money, but you would then you would it would just roll forward, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so when I look at my total consumption over the year, and I've got 1 month estimated. The last bill of this year is still an estimate, so I've assumed it's the same as the previous. Um, I typically consume, or I've consumed 24,454 kilowatt hours. And I went through and looked at the price per kilowatt hour every month, and that would have cost me $8,398 in change. Um, I've actually spent $1,439 in change. So this is $7,800 to the positive. It's a 4.1 year payback. Um, and anybody that tells you that investing in alternative energy isn't a good investment is just not doing their homework, especially here,
And, and
especially at our cost per kilowatt hour.
and I will
And
say
shame on GB for not going down this path.
and I will say that the FU value of being able to unplug from GB to just as much as possible, detach from their system is also worth a lot of has a big value to me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, a big shout out to David Solomon at Solomon Solar, who helped me do all of this with all the batteries and stuff. We're
Mm-hmm.
adding two more panels. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping that we add the two more panels, that will give me just enough horsepower to run when the guest houses are there,
Mm-hmm.
and get me, kind of through the night, so to speak. But during the month of the current billing cycle, I have only had 3 days where I didn't make it 100% overnight on battery.
Nice.
Yeah, so um, I'm probably the only one of the few on the island that actually looks forward to getting their GB bill, just because of the factor, if you
Yes.
will.
Yes.
I encourage people to take a look at this stuff because it's important. And even if you don't have solar, if you know where your GB meter is, take a picture on your phone every day of your import number, right? And keep track of it so that when you get your invoice at the end of the month, you've got some empirical evidence to make sure that you're being billed properly, because your GB invoice will show on it. It will show two things. It will show the previous meter reading will have a number of kilowatt hours, and the current reading, and the difference between the two is your usage, and that times the rate per kilowatt hour will tell you what your bill should be. You should be able to do that calculation, within reason. And you don't necessarily know what day they took the reading, and just because they're. I also can tell you that, like, my bill, that my end date, and this one is through the 13th of um, November,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the day that they were there doing the reading, and so I took a reading at the same time, and the two numbers don't jive, because they use a different date, right? So they're not terribly accurate in what they do.
And I again, I don't have a problem with staff,
No.
but indeed, some I've seen the guys out reading meters
Mhm.
with a pad and pen, and really makes me wonder, like, those things should be on some
Yeah.
sort of a digital device by now,
Yeah.
not just subject to somebody's handwriting, and then
And
just imagine
and
somebody
how
then has to write it down, somebody then has to enter it into a system later. I mean, the opportunities for
the
mistakes are just
transposition errors are just crazy.
exactly.
Let me do this, Emil. Let me take a quick commercial break, and we'll come back. I'm way late, and we'll do this. We'll come back talk about the other stuff that happened at Council of Ministers press briefing. I think we can get off our GB bashing page, although we kind of like it. We'll be right back. Here's everything that's happening tonight. Welcome back to the program. Glad you're with us. Emil Lee is still here. St. Martin Insights News that matters to you. It's 8:50 right here in the Northeast Caribbean. Prime Blackout Weekend is happening this weekend, 5, 6, and 7. Lots of great sales over at Prime. I think we're going to be live from Prime tomorrow morning. I'm going to do a site survey this afternoon, make sure all the connections are going to work. And what else happened, or shouldn't I ask?
No, so obviously, Tiat and Justice, they were both, celebrating the end of the hurricane season without anything in terms of incidents here in St. Martin, counting their blessings, of course. Tiat, she mentioned about, she had a report in Parliament about all of the bus and taxi licenses, many of which seem to have been handed out incorrectly or not being used correctly. And so she's talking about putting in a transportation committee, which will be used to review all of the licenses and revoke the ones that have been not either not complied with or not handed out correctly, I believe. So they'll start with the easy ones, which apparently she thinks is about 150 licenses which are not compliant, and then they'll start dealing with the other ones that are a bit more complicated. Both recognized, which was at least good, that they didn't need questioning or prompting to realize that safety and security is an issue and traffic is an issue, right? That, there's a lot of complaints about traffic at all hours of the day. And so that's something that they say they're going to work on. And the Minister of Justice announced a couple of measures for the upcoming holiday season. So one of which is that from now until further notice, Monday through Saturdays, from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., two-wheeled vehicles, meaning scooters and motorcycles, will not be allowed in Phillipsburg on Back Street and Front Street. So the idea, I think, is that scooters have been used in crimes, in particular towards the jewelry stores, and so they're hoping that by making it difficult or prohibiting them from being in town, that will make things safer. So I'm just kind of like working through. So number one, I asked, there's some residents in that area that have scooters. Are they also going to be banned? And she said, well, yeah, the ban would apply to residents as well. So I don't know how that will actually work out. But you're talking about banning scooters and motorcycles from Back Street and Front Street, but there's so many different entrances in and out. I'm kind of wondering how they're going to enforce that, right? I mean, there's a lot of little side streets in,
Yeah.
so you see scooters and things up and down even the boardwalk. So,
Well, yeah.
so I really
What I
wonder
really
in practice how that will work.
Well, especially say I live there, right? And my primary mode of transportation happens to be a scooter.
Right,
You're not telling me I can't drive my scooter to and from my home?
right.
Um, that's just something yeah.
Well, I
Hmm.
guess they would say you need to leave before 6 and come back after before 8 a.m. and come back after 6:30. I guess that's the rationale. I mean, again, I understand what they're saying,
I get it. Don't get me wrong.
right? And I think the idea of being proactive and trying to do something to make town safer, I think that's a good thing, of
Yeah.
course. I'm just sort of wondering because one of the things you hear consistently is that there's issues with manpower. And so you do sort of wonder how the enforcement of that will actually happen.
Yeah.
And it was interesting last night. We were having a conversation with some friends, and I don't know if you've noticed, like when there's a traffic accident, very often it's police officers that are going to the traffic accidents, right? So it it does make you wonder, like, why wouldn't you have sort of let's call it more of an administrative level of law enforcement that would go to those accidents rather than taking up the time, if you are so limited with human resources, right? Let a more administrative person go to those scenes rather than having, real full police officers or perhaps
Well, and
BKS or something like that.
I suspect that we're probably limited on all levels, right? In terms that might be the problem.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, what I really struggle with, Emil, is when we say we're limited in resources.
Hmm.
When you look at the size of the government apparatus,
Hmm.
um, I have to keep asking myself, why are we limited? Because the government must be the single largest employer on the Dutch side, and when I look at small towns around the world, we don't have, they don't have anywhere near as large of a human resource complement, if you will, than as we do. And why are we so strapped for resources?
Right.
Makes it really it says to me maybe we're not doing things the right way.
Well, and indeed, it goes back to like questions about travel. I mean, for example, the prime minister was talking about some of his activities, and he was in Suriname for a week for their 50th anniversary of their independence, and yeah, he explained he had a number of meetings. Great. And maybe there's some opportunities he was talking about, perhaps food security. Suriname, I guess, has a lot of agriculture, so perhaps we can import directly. But in the end, I don't think government is going to import food from Suriname. I think in the end, it's up to the supermarkets, up to the businesses to make those connections. So, indeed, number one, you would say, do the travel expenses make sense? Is it a good investment? And then, the simplest for me, the lowest hanging fruit is the Airbnb. We're going into season. There's still no concerted effort to collect the money from Airbnbs that aren't paying the room tax as they're supposed
And
to.
it
And
really annoys me because there are so many of us. There's a handful of us that are,
correct,
and they make the competitive landscape less, um, less fair, more uneven. And government's real job is to create that fair playing field, and they're
correct,
not doing it. They're
correct,
just not.
correct,
They're failing. They get a failing grade,
correct.
um, and that's sad. That's just sad.
Yeah.
Just sad.
Minister of Justice also talked about how they're going to get aggressive with vendors, hawkers, people loitering in particular, like on the boardwalk, harassing tourists.
Good.
That's a good thing. You would hope that that would be something that they do all the time.
Well, yeah.
That you don't just wait for busy season. Because it's about creating that atmosphere of sort of lawful and decent behavior, right? Hopefully, you don't say that this is only for our peak seasons. And I think it's important. Again, this is a message that SHTA had many years ago when I was there as president. And I hear it in our discussions about traffic, and I hear it in our discussions about crime. And absolutely, though, if those things are out of control, it threatens our main industry, which is tourism. But I think the main reason is that we, the people who live here, don't want to sit in traffic for hours, right? Of course, it's bad that tourists come and do the same, and that hurts our industry. But in the end, we want to live in a safe community. We want to live in a community where our children, you don't have to worry about if they go out on the streets to play, that it's, safe.
Right.
You don't want people selling them drugs at the boardwalk when they're
Right.
riding their scooters or bicycles up and down the street. So, in the end, we want to make St. Martin a great place to live, and by default, it'll be a great place to visit.
Here, here.
So
Here, here. Emil, thank you so much, sir.
sure,
Always,
always enjoy being here.
yeah. We look forward to next week. Of course, St. Martin Insights news that matters to you, with our managing editor of Cree Broadcasting Network News, Emil Lee. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and happy holidays. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
It is just coming up on 9 o'clock right here in the Northeast Caribbean. A lot to do. By the way, Bamboo House and Bamboo Beach. Bamboo House, Friday, December 5th, having salsa night. Don't want to miss that. Direct from Puerto Rico, and featuring Eric Riviera, and DJ Euro will be there as well. And then the same thing on Sunday over at Bamboo Beach, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Gotta love that. Always good stuff. Our good friends at Bamboo House, Bamboo Beach. looking forward to that. We're going to talk about Prime Blackout Weekend. That is going on starting tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Hopefully, we're live from Prime tomorrow. Dee's Beach Bar on Monday is having, and this is a benefit for Freaking Food Foundation, the Hospitality Olympics, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Teams of 5. You can sign up at WhatsApp 1-340-626-5871. Gotta love that. Motor World starting on Saturday. The Motor World annual summer car show. Christmas car show, excuse me, not summer. Christmas car show is going on all day long. Great opportunity to get some great new vehicles and great deals, too. It's 9 o'clock right here in the Northeast Caribbean Marine and Tropical Weather Update brought to you by K Beach Club and Restaurant. K like character coming up.